President Biden condemning supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro for storming top government offices yesterday. Biden writing on Twitter, quote, "I condemn the assault on democracy and on the peaceful transfer of power. Brazil's democratic institutions have our full support, and the will of the Brazilian people must not be undermined." Joining me now, retired two-star Marine Corps General, National Defense Industrial Association Chairman Emeritus, the Punaro Group CEO, and author of The Ever-Shrinking Fighting Force, General Arnold Punaro. And sir, it is great to have you on with us this morning. We always thank you for your service when you're with us, but I have to get your take on what you're seeing down in Brazil, because it seems to be another attack on democracy.
Well, Cheryl, always a privilege to be with you and your colleagues. I think we have to basically underscore the importance of Brazil. Brazil is the largest country in South America. They're the largest population. They're the largest economy, and they're the largest democracy. And democracy has always been a challenge in the Americas, and it's fragile around the world, and of course now in Brazil. In my judgment, in democracy, the people have a right to protest. Now, those should be peaceful protests. So the people that felt like they weren't on the winning side have a right to protest, just like, frankly, I was on active duty in the Marine Corps when hundreds of thousands of veterans came to Washington to protest the Vietnam War, and it was peaceful. So I think that the Silva government knew this was coming for months. It doesn't appear to me they were well prepared. Clearly, they admit that because they fired a number of their top law enforcement officials. And so, to me, the key is we have to support democracy, and we have to support the key elements of democracy, of which protests are a legitimate part, but they need to be peaceful.
And why this worries me so much, sir, is because of what we're seeing over with China and Taiwan. I mean, you know, democracy is a bad word, obviously, in China. And they've got this second round of military drills around Taiwan in less than a month. And this has really kind of erupted under the radar, if you will, over the holidays. Taiwan's defense ministry detected 57 Chinese warplanes near the island. 28 flew into the air defense zone. And the U.S. Navy has just sailed a warship through the Taiwan Strait. That was just last week. So when you talk about what's happening in Brazil, I think I'm a little more worried about what's happening in China with Taiwan and where this is going and what our role as Americans is going to be in this.
Cheryl, spot on. I mean, the independence of Taiwan is fundamental to the freedoms in the Western democracies, not just from an economic standpoint, but from a national security standpoint. And look, China is when they have protests, they quell it with lethal force, just like they do in Iran. There's no such thing as a kinder, gentler China, as some people are suggesting now that they're lifting the COVID restrictions. And yes, we have every right, and we assert freedom of navigation. And I'd like to see us be more aggressive in terms of showing the Chinese that we are not going to be deterred from sailing our warships and operating on the seas, in the air, in international waters, and asserting, of course, they saying that the South China Sea is now Chinese, which anybody that can look at a map knows is ludicrous. But you're exactly correct to be more concerned about that situation. And I would say with Taiwan, we need to enhance deterrence now so we don't get ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves in Ukraine. And the way you basically, Xi is promoted to foreign minister another extreme hardliner and a Xi clone, the former ambassador to the Chinese ambassador to the United States. China understands force. That's what they understand. Taiwan needs to get offensive weapons to basically be able to threaten their cultural and financial center in Shanghai if China was to make any moves against Taiwan. So we need to be extremely focused on that situation in the Indo-Pacific, just like Japan and South Korea and Australia and many of our allies are.
Yeah, Lee Carter.
Now, we need to be extremely focused there, and yet we're proposing right now a $75 billion reduction to defense spending. What signal does that send to China, and what impact does that have on all of this?
Lee, you really pointed out earlier, as did your colleagues, the dichotomy, the fact that it's a good thing that the new House leadership is focused on trying to rein in federal spending, get our deficits under control. But everybody needs to recognize the runaway spending is in the entitlements. It's in the healthcare areas. It's not in the discretionary spending. It certainly is not in defense. And agreement to go back to FY22 level for defense would be a massive cut of $75 billion, which is worse than the worst year of the awful sequester that started in FY13 and decimated our military readiness. The world is extremely dangerous and unstable. China's on the march. Russia's on the attack. Iran's on the verge of having a nuclear weapon. North Korea continues to rattle their saber. The last thing we should be doing is sending the word that we are going to slow down on our military. Our munitions, we don't buy enough munitions for our own war plans, much less for helping our allies both in the Indo-Pacific and in Ukraine. I think it would be a very, very bad signal, and I'm worried. A Republican from Texas on Fox yesterday said he was going to vote against the rules package because of that, and Jim Jordan, one of the real leaders for Speaker McCarthy, talked about everything's on the table. So it's a huge worry bead in my view.
Yeah, and David Nelson, jump in here because Russia did fail to keep its word on this, 36-hour ceasefire, and the general is bringing up the fact that Russia is still on the attack in Ukraine.
I guess I don't think that's a surprise. It's Vladimir Putin. He's going to say something. He's going to do something else. I'd like to pivot back to China because in Taiwan, are we up to this, General? Are we going to put in the military assets that are needed in this region of the world? Are we going to just send, token ships through the Straits of Taiwan as a freedom of navigation? Are we going to put our allies together and really do something about this and send a hard message to China?
Well, David, I thought Zach Cooper and you and Lee had some great points on this earlier in the show, and I do think we're up to it. And frankly, President Biden, speaks correctly when he says we're going to protect Taiwan, and then a lot of the administration people try to roll that back. I think the proof's in the pudding. If we start basically significantly beefing up Taiwan's capability, particularly with offensive capability, we also need for the Chinese Navy to understand that the U.S. Navy can sink the Chinese Navy. So there's a lot of beefing up that we have to do there. And I'm going to be, and as Lee pointed out, I don't think you can do that and cut the defense budget by $75 billion. So the next 4 or 5 months, the budget resolution in the House will be the key, the early determinant of where the numbers are going to come out. And so I do think we're up to it. I do think Mike Gallagher is going to chair the Select Committee on China. He's going to be pointing all this out. There's bipartisan support for the fact that we need to beef up and confront China. There's no such thing as a kinder, gentler China. And so you're correct. We need to be on the attack at all times across the board.
Right. This, as recruitment levels for all branches of the military are by some levels 25% lower year over year. So we can't get young men and women to join the armed forces. And you're talking about cuts to defense when we have got several threats around the world that we need to take notice of. I agree with you 100%. General Arnold Punaro, it's really good to have you here, sir. General, thank you.